Got to be real. Be real.
Yes, guys, what's going on? So, I want to talk a little bit about Anthony Joshua. I'm really happy because you know what? I've gone back to what I started with, and this is boxing analysis, something I like to do. And I think like with all the interviews and stuff, yeah, they're coming, they're still going, but I wanted to really get back to what, you know, started me off, and it's boxing analysis. It's what I'm best at, it's what I'm good at, and I'm happy that I'm doing it. So we're talking about Anthony Joshua. He's stepping up against this guy, DENIS something. I'm not good at pronouncing them Russian names, Middle Eastern names, so I'm not even going to attempt it. But basically, Anthony Joshua's got a fight coming up. And this video, it's about, is Anthony Joshua the real deal, or is he a hype? I've done a video, I think I've done a video on this before, but I really want to properly just tackle this right now because he is taking a step up in competition. And for those of you who don't know, this guy who he's fighting has actually faced Danny Williams. Danny Williams, I'll just refresh your memory, is that black guy who fought Mike Tyson and knocked Mike Tyson out in the 4th round. Yeah, given it was the end of Mike Tyson's career, but he still knocked out a Mike Tyson. He was able to take the shots. Now this guy's got to beaten that guy, the person Anthony Joshua's fighting. And this guy has also gone up against Ustinov, gone 12 rounds. Given Danny Williams has had a string of losses, yeah, but it's still Danny Williams. He's not a let's not hype it up like he's a good fighter, but he's a name that I recognise and I remember. He fought Mike Tyson, you know. It's just there. He fought Mike Tyson. So other than that, I can't really think of anything that this guy's done too spectacular. I look at his resume; it's not wicked. However, having said this, Anthony Joshua in this fight, if he demolishes this guy, will it mean anything? No. But if he gets tested in this fight, then that shows something to us about Anthony Joshua. It shows that Joshua's got limits. We need to see where Anthony Joshua's limits lie. Now, here's the thing, right, about Anthony Joshua. Do I think he's the real deal? I think this guy, Anthony Joshua, has the best chance, truthfully. Him and Deontay Wilder, in my opinion, are the two fighters who really can put a stamp on the heavyweight division and take it to a totally different level. Like a totally different level, honestly. They're young. I mean, Tyson Fury, again, is a good fighter. But I really feel that Anthony Joshua, technically, because I can't lie about this here, I think Anthony Joshua, technically, is just an amazing fighter. I think that with Anthony Joshua, he has the power, he has the speed, he has the amateur background. What does he not have? I don't see him having a bad chin. I've seen him get clipped very rarely, but he does get clipped. But I've never seen him do any sort of dance or wobble. I mean, his frame is really stocky. He's got big traps. He's got good shock absorbers in his neck. People say that these things don't make a difference. I think it does. There are people obviously who've had bad chins who have been really massive. But like on a whole, you look at Anthony Joshua. I mean, he's black. I know people are gonna say like, what the hell does that have to do with anything? It does, because I mean, you have had a few black glass chin fighters, but really, I mean, he's like that. He's of that breed where you could just see it, man. I don't think he's gonna have a bad chin or anything like that, man. I just don't see it, honestly. It's just multiple reasons. If he goes and has a bad chin, I will be extremely, extremely shocked. And I just don't see him having a bad chin. Anthony Joshua, the thing is with this lad, is he had a fight in his last fight on the Scott Quigg undercard against that guy. I don't know who he was, but he fought this guy, and I went into Anthony Joshua's dressing room, and what was he doing? The guy was doing pad work after the fight. It's incredible to me that someone would be doing something like that after the fight, and he is. I'm gonna say this now. Look, I train in a gym where I do weights, and we had the British champion. I don't know what weight class he was, but he was a former British champion training upstairs. You get a good amount of heavyweights. You get a lot of black guys from the hood who are boxers, heavyweight, big, massive guys, taller than Anthony Joshua, big guys. You get people, you know what I mean? It's a real hood gym, and I go to train there because obviously it's just, I like the atmosphere. I like training there. And upstairs you've got the boxing going on. You've got all the people, you know. You got people who are the champions of like Yorkshire or whatever it is, and you get a lot of good fighters coming out in and out of there. And they go to gyms like the Ingle Camp, and you know, they go to these different gyms, and you do get some good fighters who pop in and out of there. And you see that, you know, these guys are hood guys. They train weight. Some of them are steroided up, and they bang on the bags. And you can see they know how to throw a punch. They know how to fight. So I have like an understanding of, in terms of that, like close up I see. Because, you know, sometimes we go on the bags together and there'll be a big massive heavyweight there. And he's like, you know, there'll be mans who are roided up there. And there'll be big guys and they can bang, yeah. You know what I mean? The big, tall, like, you know, they're just big, tall, massive, huge guys. And they bam, bam, and they're punching the bag. And I can feel their power when they're punching it. Because I'll be on the other side punching it as well. But the thing is, when I saw Anthony Joshua up close hitting them pads, I'm telling you, man, it was something I haven't seen before. The power that he generates is not... Look, man, it's not average power. This guy can crack. He can really crack. He can bang. And I know that I'm comparing an elite level athlete to people who are from the hood and not professional athletes. But I mean, these guys are roided up. Whereas Anthony Joshua's been tested throughout the Olympics and throughout, you know, in Britain you get tested a lot. So he's natural. And for him to be able to punch like that hard, man, when he was on the pads, you could like feel that power. Pa, pa, pa. And it had a really heavy feel to it on the pads. You could feel like the heaviness of his hands when he were popping. And it just makes me think to myself, like, who can withstand that amount of power on the chin? You know, like, who can withstand that power? And you're going to be saying, like, what? That doesn't mean anything, this is not. Okay, which is going to bring me on to my next point about Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua, he was hitting them, he could hit hard. I mean, he was banging hard. But here's the other thing. The guy's a gold medalist in the Olympics. He's learning on the job in the pros. He's a student of the game. And now when I interviewed him, he talked to me about Joe Louis. Okay, and I didn't have time to go into it at the time. But I mean, we look at Joe Louis' story and we look at how he was this person who was bigged up by you know, by white America, and like Joe Louis is gonna be the hero of America and all this, and he went into the army, spent his money and did all this stuff for the black community and, you know, all this stuff, right? Not as big as what Ali did, but he did it like in a different manner. Ali was like stood up to the white supremacy at the time, whereas Joe Louis kind of put his head down and did it with more peace and more like head down and yes sir person. But I mean, Joe Louis was a guy who stood for America, and then you had that what's his name? I forget his name, but you know, you had the person fighting for Germany and Hitler was behind him, and it was like a country against a country. Joe Louis had so much. And do you know what the thing is? Is that Anthony Joshua looks up to Joe Louis, and he understands that old school boxing. Therefore, it brings me to the conclusion that Joe Louis Anthony Joshua, who is looking at Joe Louis and looking at these fighters, because when I spoke to Anthony Joshua, he knew about Muhammad Ali and Ken Norton, and he knew about these fighters, and he knew about Joe Louis. And you see, the thing about Joe Louis is Joe Louis goes back quite a bit back. So for you to know about Joe, I mean, I'm not going to name any fighters, but there are multiple fighters in boxing today who will not be able to tell you that much about Joe Louis and tell you about the old school fighters, because although they're boxers, they don't understand boxing. And I think that's the difference between a good and a great fighter. It's one of the differences. There are other variables that you have to consider, but that's one of the main things, that a good fighter and a great fighter will be able to tell you about the history of boxing and understand boxing. When we look at Floyd Money Mayweather, he could sit here and tell you so much about boxing. Why? Because of Roger Mayweather. Roger Mayweather and Floyd Mayweather Sr. have instilled in Floyd Mayweather Jr. all about boxing history and the different fighters, and how Roy Jones used to do this, and you know, Willie Pep used to do his footwork this way, how Ali used to dance and use his head movement, how Joe Louis used to sit on his punch, crack it, and how Rocky Marciano used to crack, you know, and Rocky Marciano's footwork and all this history of boxing, right? It leads us up to this point where we are now, because for you to know where you're at the moment, you have to know where you came from. I mean, we study anything. I mean, I'm an economics graduate, right? And when we study economics, right, what do? We look at the current climate and what's going to take place, you know, further on from now, right? We're trying to forecast what's happening or current events. But in order for us to know that, we have to look at the theories of like Adam Smith and all the old school theories, the Keynesian economics, and these are like theories which are like over 100 or something years old, but they matter because it brings us to where we are now. It's the same thing in boxing, that you have to look at the old school to come to understand the new school boxing, and it's developed over time. Anthony Joshua is a person who understands all this history, and when I talked to him, I could understand he understood. Like Joe Louis and Ali are in two different eras. Mike Tyson knew about Tyson. Anthony Joshua is a fighter who studies the old school fighters, and he's learning. He is technically very good. He has power. He has speed. I have no reason to believe he has a bad chin. I think it's just a matter of time before Anthony Joshua bursts on the scene as one of the great heavyweights of this era and the coming era. I can't see Anthony Joshua losing to many fighters. You see someone like Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder's, he's my boy, man, Deontay Wilder. I chat to him on Twitter. Cool guy. I've done an interview with him. And, I've met him. And he's just a cool guy as a Deontay Wilder. But you see, when we're talking about boxing analysis and we're talking about critiquing boxing and, looking into the depth of what's currently happening in boxing, I've got to critique people. And when I see Deontay Wilder, and you compare technically Wilder and Joshua, see, Anthony Joshua, like he said, he's a person who will break someone down. He'll jab you, pat, 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 boom, and he'll knock your clout out. That's the thing with Anthony Joshua. That's how he fights. He will knock you flush out. But you see, he doesn't do it straight away. He'll break you down and do it. And he can technically box. Now, when you can technically box and you can knock someone out, you're dangerous. Because say someone takes, let's say, right, Deontay Wilder fights Anthony Joshua. We have Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. Or Derek Chisora and Anthony Joshua. And it's very early because Joshua's not faced anyone. But in these early stages, we have to look at what we currently have. What do we have? We have a gold medalist. We know we can box. We have a guy who we know has got a tremendous amount of power. I mean, no one's taken him 12 rounds yet. Do you get me? Like, nobody's... And even if someone does take him 12 rounds, I mean, and it's not like he's trying to knock them out. He's boxing them and knocking them out. Okay, there's a difference between that and what someone like Tyson or Deontay Wilder does. Because Mike Tyson and Deontay Wilder, they're going in there to knock you out. Anthony Joshua's going in there to break you down and jab you and cross you and outbox you. And he just happens to get these knockouts. And his knockouts are coming now at 100% ratio. And nobody's taking him up to the mid to late rounds. Nobody's taking him there. So, for this reason, I'm going out on a limb and saying that I really believe Anthony Joshua is going to be the star heavyweight of this era. Let's say he fights someone like Deontay Wilder and Wilder knocks Joshua out. If they rematch, I think Joshua stands a brilliant chance in that rematch because the guy can box. That's the thing. He can box. He can box Deontay Wilder's head off. Do I think that Anthony Joshua should switch trainer currently? There's a saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think that maybe this might apply to Anthony Joshua because we don't know what's going on in his camp. And I think that if he switched to an American trainer, it's not just that he switches to an American trainer. It's that he switches everything he does and what he's doing right now in terms of strength conditioning, his entire camp, his crew, it's working for him. And why try to spoil that formula? Until we see a tremendous flaw in Anthony, I don't think, maybe he shouldn't change. I don't know. He knows best about how good his trainer really is. Okay? But what I'm here to say right now is this, that I really believe Anthony Joshua is going to go all the way from here to there. For those of you who don't know about Anthony Joshua, YouTube him, right? Google him. Watch his footwork. Watch what he does. Every little thing he does, he takes his time and he can bang. And he's not, and for the size of him, he's not that flat-footed. He was flat-footed, I thought, about 2 to 3 fights ago. He was very flat-footed. He was a Canelo. But recently he started bouncing on his toes and I've started seeing a bit more footwork from him. This is showing me improvements. And I'm seeing improvements from fight to fight to fight. Let's just see how he goes when he fights a Tyson Fury, a Derek Chisora, a Deontay Wilder, a David Haye. Because I said, what would happen, I put on Twitter, what would happen if David Haye fought Anthony Joshua? You see, say Anthony Joshua gets knocked out by David Haye or Deontay Wilder. It happens, it's boxing. Everyone gets knocked out and get hit with flush punches, that happens. But if someone systematically comes and outboxes and destroys Anthony Joshua, that's something different. Now we're talking about that he can't be that top tier elite heavyweight. And maybe I'm talking rubbish, I don't know. But, like, I just truly think that that's not going to happen. I can't see who there is in the heavyweight division out of all the fighters. And, it's not like Anthony Joshua got me on a payroll or that Anthony Joshua talks to me all the time, or he's my boy and this and that. No, because I'm closer with other heavyweights, such as Deontay Wilder. I talk to him, you know, he's what you call a boy. I've interviewed Tyson Fury multiple times. I'm really close to the Fury camp. But we're talking boxing analysis, and I can't lie and say that I don't think Anthony Joshua is the real deal. I really feel he is the real deal. And I'm telling you this now, that I can't see... I just struggle to see, unless it's by knockout, someone knocks him flush out, which happens in boxing. I can't see someone taking him like to the 8th and 10th round and then banging him out and knocking him out and busting him up. I just don't see Anthony Joshua that happening to him. I think he's got too much power and like technical boxing. Like, if anything, I think someone like David Haye is faster than him. I think someone like Deontay Wilder is more faster on his feet than him. And David Haye, I mean, like, bodywork and up, and he cracks as well, does David Haye. But I mean, these guys are the elite level heavyweights that we have in the division, like it or not. Tyson Fury is still like up there, you know. I don't see Derek Chisora beating Joshua. I just don't see that happening. I think Derek Chisora is a good fighter. I like his style, but I just don't see him beating Anthony Joshua in any department. But say he loses to one or two of these fighters, that doesn't mean anything because he's progressing, and I see like him in like, where do I see Joshua in 6-7 years? I see him being in his prime. An unbelievable fighter with skill, with power. And call me kissing his ass, but I just personally think that this guy is going to be the real deal. Let me know what you guys think of Anthony Joshua. Do you think he's the real deal? Leave your comment section below. Make sure you subscribe as always. Go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/BeRealOnline. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, because on Twitter I'm very active at Sham_Ayub. And make sure, please guys, to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Interviews, analysis, everything. I'm doing it all. We got interviews with fighters from around the world coming. Let me know what you think. Comment section below.